Hi, today we will tell the story of the movie The Wall, which was released in 2012. Okay, let's get straight to the story. An unnamed woman writes about her strange life experiences in a diary. She finds a pen and notebook behind the calendar of a hypochondriac collector named Hugo. She began writing these notes on November 5th, where she wrote down her experiences from the beginning when her life was still normal. At that time, this woman was driving with Hugo and Luis, and a dog named Lux. They arrived at the cottage at 3 in the afternoon, and Luis suggested returning to the village because they were in a hurry. Hugo said that he had left the keys in case she wanted to visit at any time, but their dog, Lux, did not want to come. And for some reason, Lux wanted to stay with the woman. At night, the woman got ready for bed while listening to the radio and wearing a mask. At 9 o'clock at night, she went to bed taking the house keys with her. The next morning, the woman was awakened by the sound of Lux, the dog wanting to rush outside. After taking Lux out, the woman then knocked on the door of Hugo and Luis's room, but there was no sign of them at all. The woman did not suspect anything. She only realized that Hugo and Luis did not come home. Then, she decided to go to the village with Lux on foot. At first, their journey was uneventful, until Lux sounded like it was in pain, so the woman quickened her pace. Lux was not injured, but it bit its own tongue, so the woman finally told Lux to continue on its way, but Lux turned back at night. How surprised she was, the woman suddenly seemed to have hit an invisible wall. She realized something was wrong. She tried to feel the invisible wall, which felt like a glass wall, after which she pondered and tried to digest what had just happened. If the wall had been there for a long time, Hugo and Luis should have hit it, but their trip yesterday had gone smoothly. If the wall had been there for a long time, people would have gathered, but there was no one there but her. The woman got up to try again, to see if something was blocking her, or if it was just a hallucination, but still, she couldn't find the exact answer. The woman decided to walk home. She remembered a house about a corner away. She saw an old man in front of a water tap and an old woman on the terrace. The woman tried to approach, but strangely, their house was also surrounded by glass walls. In fact, the man and woman did not move. Then she blinked for a moment, making sure she was not hallucinating. However, the elderly couple remained motionless, until finally, the woman gave up and walked home to the cottage. She didn't know what would happen next, but she was grateful she still had Lux. She thought, if this was an alien, it shouldn't be happening in a small village in Belgium, or in Austria, or even in Europe. As night fell, the woman decided to rest. Just as she closed her eyes, she suddenly heard strange noises. So she got up and approached the source of the noise coming from the door. When she tried to go outside, she was shocked to hit the glass wall that now surrounded her house. She screamed, and then woke up. As it turned out, it was just a bad dream, and she woke up the next day around 6 a.m. Lux was waiting for her by the bed. Even though she was trapped, she felt she had to stay calm and survive. She then hesitated to open the door, afraid that her dream would come true, but thankfully, it didn't. The woman then took a walk by the river, spending the day with the same calm as yesterday. Until 2 p.m., she decided to take a walk with Hugo's binoculars. She stood at the edge of her closest neighbor's glass wall and tried to look more closely, but she didn't find anything of significance. The old man who was still in the same position yesterday. Then she thought, if the old man was dead, then all the living things in this place should be dead too. She started thinking, what if she had gone with Hugo and Luis yesterday? Lux suddenly ran barking behind the hill. Then from behind the trees, a cow appeared, and the woman reflexively backed away in fear. However, she saw that the cow was not aggressive, so she finally decided to keep the cow, which she then considered both a blessing and a burden, because the cow had to be milked, so it needed someone at all times. She didn't expect to get a calf, but only needed its milk, so the woman named the cow Bella. The next day, the woman tried to break through the wall on another lane with a car. She saw an empty car pulled over at the edge of the forest, but her efforts were in vain. The car crashed into the glass wall and wrecked the car, and she also injured her head. 10 days had passed, but the wall was still there. The woman was tired of thinking about what she should do and decided to face reality. However, there were times when she cried about her fate and even tried to commit suicide. However, she finally decided to stay alive, especially thinking about Lux and Bella, who couldn't be alone. Besides, Hugo had stocked up on supplies to last the summer with everything she had, enough for her to survive even without a conversation partner. The woman also slowly tried to do activities that she could do, such as planting potatoes. She worked and crossed out the calendar from day to day to survive and remain civilized. If she stopped doing it, she would also stop being human, not forgetting to write her thoughts in a notebook. On May 30th, it rained heavily, forcing the woman to stay indoors. Suddenly, she heard the sound of a cat outside. Sure enough, she saw a cat soaking wet on her porch. Since then, the woman has been living in a cottage with 4 others. There was Lux, Bella, the cat, and herself. The most loyal Lux was nearby, and the woman also learned to hunt deer that had appeared out of nowhere. The next day, she returned to the wrecked car and tried to turn on the radio, but no radio channels were audible, only the sound of music that had been playing when she had first left for the cottage. The woman then found a map in the car and saved it. Bella's dependence on her made the woman unable to walk far, but occasionally she wanted to walk to a higher place with a valley below. She then went out at night, accompanied by Lux. The next morning, she arrived at a new place where a truck loaded with wood